at you! You abandoned your business interview to kneel beside a woman who smells like the motor park. Perhaps poverty recognizes its own relatives.
The slap cracked across the entrance of Adebayo Heritage Pavilion. Simi's head snapped sideways. 300 people saw it. Nobody moved. "Look at you!" Amaka shouted, her ruby-red suit blazing beneath the cameras. "You abandoned your business interview to kneel beside a woman who smells like the motor park. Perhaps poverty recognizes its own relatives." At Simi's feet, 72-year-old Halima Bello trembled against the pavement, one hand gripping a faded cloth bag. Security men had dragged her away from the VIP gate. Her medicine had scattered. Her lips were turning pale. Simi lifted her chin, though blood had filled the corner of her mouth. "She is not rubbish, Ma. She needs help." Laughter rolled through the crowd. Then Dare Adebayo stepped forward in his embroidered agbada. "Disqualify this girl," he said coldly. "Remove both of them before they disgrace our development ceremony." Simi had just lost the only opportunity that could rescue her from poverty. But inside Halima's battered bag was a document capable of shutting down the magnificent building behind them and exposing the man everyone called the town's greatest benefactor. Do not miss what happened days later. Before we continue, subscribe and tell us in the comments where you are listening from and your local time right now. At exactly 9:17 that Saturday morning, Oak Aro had dressed itself like a town that had finally escaped suffering. Banners stretched across the road from Unity Motor Park to the new pavilion. Brass letters shone above the marble entrance. White plastic chairs stood in neat rows beneath rented canopies, and 2 television crews had arrived from Ilorin to cover what the organizers called Oak Aro Prosperity Week. On the giant backdrop behind the stage, Dare Adebayo's smiling face appeared beside the words "development with dignity." Nobody mentioned that the old community clinic, less than 600 meters away, had only 2 usable beds. Nobody mentioned that rainwater still entered its maternity room through a broken window. Nobody mentioned the women, who had been asked to bring their own cotton wool before receiving treatment. That morning, people wanted music. They wanted speeches. They wanted photographs beside a powerful man. Simi Okoro wanted only one thing: a chance. She stood in the line of 9 finalists wearing a mustard yellow blouse she had sewn from leftover fabric and a cobalt blue skirt that had once belonged to one of Amaka's customers. She had altered it carefully, hiding the old seam beneath a strip of hand embroidery. Her shoes were plain brown flats. The left sole had begun to separate near the toe, but she had pressed it down with adhesive the previous night. From a distance, nobody could tell. That was how Simi had learned to live. Repair what was breaking. Hide what could embarrass you. Keep moving. At 26, she had already spent 8 years inside Amaka fashion house, first as an apprentice, then as a cutter, finisher and emergency miracle worker whenever a wealthy customer brought a badly fitted dress 3 hours before an event. Amaka still called her the girl. Her written agreement said she would earn 70,000 naira each month. In reality, Amaka paid whatever amount pleased her, whenever it pleased her. For 3 months, she had withheld 73,000 naira from Simi. "Clients are owing me," Amaka always said. But the same week, she bought a new phone and announced it loudly in the shop. Simi had said nothing. She needed the work. Every evening after closing, she carried a folding wooden table to the edge of Unity Motor Park and repaired school uniforms, market aprons, work trousers and broken zips beneath a rechargeable lamp. Some nights she earned 3,000 naira. Some nights she earned 400. She saved every note inside an old custard tin hidden beneath her mattress. Her dream was not extravagant. 1 room. 3 sewing machines, a signboard that read Simi Stitch House, and 2 apprentices who would be paid on time. The prosperity grant could have made that possible. 1.5 million naira, not a gift thrown from a stage. The finalists had submitted business plans, cost estimates, and proof of skill. Simi's application listed a used industrial machine at 387,000 naira, shop rent at 240,000, cutting tables, thread, electricity, and 6 months of working capital. She had checked the figures 4 times. She had even traveled to Ilorin to compare machine prices. Now her number was clipped to her blouse. Finalist 7. The master of ceremonies called Finalist 5. Then Finalist 6. Simi rubbed her palms against her skirt. "Do not shake," whispered the woman beside her. "I am not shaking. You are shaking. I am only arranging my fingers." The woman smiled. Across the open space, drums rolled as Dare Adebayo stepped down from the stage to greet traditional leaders and business owners. He wore a deep burgundy agbada with gold embroidery and a cream filer. His security men cleared a path before him. Dare was 49, broad-shouldered and smooth-faced, with the kind of calm voice that made insults sound like advice. He had returned to Okaro 11 years earlier, after building a construction business in Abuja. Since then, he had donated streetlights, repaired part of the market roof, and paid examination fees for selected students, whose parents appeared beside him in photographs. People called him a blessing. He never corrected them. Behind him walked Amaka Ibe in a ruby-red trouser suit, white blouse and black heels. She was chairing the Women's Enterprise Committee, which meant she had helped review the finalists. When Simi first learned that Amaka was part of the panel, her heart had fallen. Amaka had squeezed her face and said, "Hope you did not write lies inside that application. Prosperity grant is not for people who still sew buttonholes by hand." Yet Simi had passed every stage. Until that morning, a movement near the VIP gate caught her eye. An elderly woman stood behind the barrier, arguing softly with one of the security men. She wore an indigo blouse, an orange wrapper faded at the folds, and an off-white headscarf. Dust coated the edges of her sandals. A brown cloth bag hung from her shoulder. "Please," the woman said. "I need to see Mr. Adebayo before he enters." "Move away, Mama. I have written 3 letters. This place is not complaint office. My name is Halima Bello. Tell him I came concerning the trust land." The guard laughed. "Which trust land?" "The land beneath this building." Mama, do not start this kind of story here." Another guard stepped forward. "Take her away before the camera catches her." The woman held the cloth bag tighter. "I am not begging for food." "Then why do you look like someone who has been following hunger since morning?" 2 men nearby laughed. Simi heard them. So did others. Nobody objected. The master of ceremonies called, "Finalist 7, please prepare. You are next." Simi faced the stage again. This was her chance. 8 years of swallowing insults. 3 months of unpaid wages. Nights spent sewing beneath mosquitoes. She could not throw it away for a stranger. Then the old woman took 1 step backwards. Her hand reached for the barrier, missed. The cloth bag slipped from her shoulder. A small plastic medicine bottle rolled across the pavement. Halima collapsed. For 1 frozen second, the crowd simply adjusted its gaze. Some people shifted their chairs. A man raised his phone. One of the guards bent down, not to help her, but to drag her away from the entrance. "Leave her," Simi shouted. She stepped out of the finalists' line. "Finalist 7, the coordinator called. Simi did not stop. She knelt beside Halima and touched her shoulder. "Mama, can you hear me?" Halima's eyelids fluttered. "Yes. Are you diabetic?" A weak nod. "Did you eat this morning?" "No." Simi looked around. "Please, Somebody call the clinic. She is still conscious. Bring something sweet. Nobody moved quickly enough. On the sponsor's table sat bottles of orange soft drink, packed inside ice. Simi grabbed one. She opened it and helped Halima take 2 small sips. Slowly, Mama. Do not rush. Amaka appeared like thunder. What nonsense is this? Simi looked up. Ma, she may have low blood sugar. You took a sponsor's drink without permission. She needs it. And your interview? She fell down. Amaka snatched the bottle from Simi's hand. Halima's fingers trembled in the air. Look at you, Amaka shouted, loud enough for the microphones near the stage to catch every word. You abandoned your business interview to kneel beside a woman who smells like the motor park. Perhaps poverty recognizes its own relatives. Somebody laughed. Then another. Simi rose slowly. She is not rubbish, Ma. She needs help. The slap came before she finished. Pain exploded across her cheek. Her head snapped sideways. The crowd went quiet, not because they were ashamed, because the drama had become interesting. Amaka pointed at her. Do not use that stubborn village confidence with me. I brought you into my shop when you had nothing. Ordinary thread cutter. Today you are stealing drinks and challenging your employer in front of respectable people. A thin line of blood appeared at the corner of Simi's mouth. She tasted iron. Halima tried to rise. Do not hit her. One guard pushed the old woman back with his forearm. Simi caught her before she struck the ground again. Dare approached. His expression did not change. What is happening? Amaka turned to him at once. This girl has created disorder, sir. She abandoned her interview, stole from the sponsor's table, and is insulting officials. Simi stared at her. Ma, you know that is not what happened. Dare's gaze moved from Simi to Halima, then to the medicine bottle lying near his shoe. For half a second, something passed across his face. Recognition. Fear. Then it vanished. Halima lifted one hand. Dare Adebayo, you know why I came. The air changed. Dare bent slightly, close enough that only those nearest could hear him. You are mistaken, Mama. No, I remember your father's handwriting. I remember your own signature, too. Dare straightened. Disqualify this girl, he said. Remove both of them before they disgrace our development ceremony. The master of ceremonies forced a laugh into the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, small misunderstanding. Let us continue. Music rose. People clapped. 2 security men reached for Halima. Simi stood between them. She cannot walk properly. That is not our concern, one said. It will become your concern if she dies here. The guard paused. Simi picked up the medicine bottle, gathered the scattered papers, and lifted the cloth bag. Then she put Halima's arm across her shoulders. The old woman was lighter than she expected. Far too light. As they moved away from the pavilion, Simi heard the master of ceremonies announce finalist 8. Her own name was never mentioned again. At the road, no taxi wanted to carry them. One driver looked at Halima and said, She will vomit inside my car. Another demanded 3 times the normal fare. Simi pulled the last 2,000 naira notes from her purse. Take us to Oak Arrow Community Clinic. The driver looked at the money, then at them. Add 500. That is all I have. Then find Keiki. Simi stepped back. Before she could speak, Halima swayed again. The driver sighed heavily as though mercy had injured him. Enter. The clinic smelled of antiseptic, damp walls and boiled rice from the staff room. A nurse checked Halima's blood sugar, blood pressure and pulse, then asked what she had eaten. Nothing since yesterday evening, Halima whispered. The nurse frowned. Why? I was traveling. Traveling is not fasting, Mama. She turned to Simi. You said you gave her soft drink? Yes. She was awake and she told me she was diabetic. That was reasonable because she could swallow. But listen well. If somebody is unconscious, Do not pour drink or food into the mouth. They can choke. Put the person on their side. Call for medical help and wait. Simi nodded. The nurse gave Halima measured glucose, food and medication. Then she asked Simi to pay for a test strip, consultation, and 2 tablets. The total was 6,800 naira. Simi had 3,200 left in her mobile account. The nurse looked at the screen. Balance looked at the screen. I will bring it. Are you her daughter? Simi looked toward Halima. No. The nurse raised her eyebrows. Halima opened her eyes. She became my daughter when everybody else refused to see me. Simi said nothing. Her cheek had begun to swell. The clinic gave Halima a bed beside a cracked window. Simi sat on a plastic chair, holding the cloth bag between her feet. From outside came the distant sound of music from Prosperity Week. The celebration continued without them. By 2 o'clock, photographs had begun to circulate online. Amaka standing beside Dare. Dare presenting a check to the grant winner. Amaka captioned one picture, "Discipline is foundation of success." Then another image appeared. Simi kneeling beside Halima. Her face turned from the slap. Someone had written, "When poverty indubitable progress." There were laughing emojis beneath it. Simi locked her phone. Halima watched her quietly. You lost something today, the old woman said. Yes. How much? 1.5 million naira. Halima closed her eyes. Simi immediately regretted answering. Mama, I did not tell you so you will feel guilty. I know. I helped because you needed help. I know that too. You were trying to meet Dare Adebayo. Halima's eyes opened again. Yes. What did you mean when you said you remembered his signature? The old woman turned toward the window. The pavilion roof could just be seen above the market buildings, shining beneath the afternoon sun. When Halima spoke, her voice was soft. My daughter, that building is standing where women were supposed to give birth without dying. Simi stared at her. Mama, maybe you should rest. You think I am confused. I think you nearly collapsed. That is not the same thing. Halima held out her hand, the bag. Simi placed it on the bed. Halima untied the knotted cord and removed a leather folder wrapped inside 2 plastic bags. The corners were worn. The pages inside smelled of dust and old cupboards. There was a survey map, a typed deed, a black and white photograph of 12 women standing on an empty piece of land, and a register filled with names, dates, and amounts. Halima touched the first page. Arrow Women's Development Trust, she said. We formed it on the 19th of August, 1989. 12 women. I am the last living founder who can still travel. Simi leaned closer. The deed described 18.7 acres. The purpose was written in plain language. A maternity center, a vocational school, a community hall. No commercial transfer without unanimous consent of the trustees. Simi looked again toward the window. The magnificent roof of Adebayo Heritage Pavilion flashed in the sunlight. Her cheek still burned. But now another feeling had entered the room. Cold understanding. Halima tapped one line with a trembling finger. This is the land number, she said. Read it. Simi read the number aloud. Halima nodded. Tomorrow, we will go to the land registry. Simi looked at her sharply. We? The old woman met her eyes. You have already paid a price for this truth, my daughter. Then, she added very quietly, the question now is whether that price was only the beginning. Simi did not sleep well that night. She returned to the single room she rented behind a mechanic's workshop at 8:43 p.m. The room was hot. The power had gone off, and the rechargeable fan had only 1 bar left. She placed her custard tin on the bed. Inside were 148,600 naira. 8 years of small savings. She counted the notes twice. Then she took out 6,000 naira to settle the clinic balance and buy food for Halima the next morning. The money looked smaller after that. Her future looked smaller too. She lay down but did not close her eyes. Amarka's slap replayed in her mind. The crowd's laughter replayed after it. What hurt most was not even the pain. It was the ease with which people had accepted the insult. Nobody asked whether Simi had done anything wrong. Nobody asked whether the old woman could breathe. They had seen poverty standing beside poverty. That was enough evidence for them. At 5:56 a.m., Simi rose, bathed with half a bucket of water, and dressed in a plain cream blouse with a navy wrapper. She bought pap, akara, and 2 boiled eggs from a roadside cellar, then returned to the clinic. Halima was already awake. "You came back," she said. "You still owe me answers." A small smile touched the old woman's lips. "Good. Kindness without questions can become foolishness." Simi placed the food beside her. "And questions without kindness can become cruelty." Halima studied her face. "Your mother taught you well. My mother died when I was 16. I am sorry." Simi shrugged, but the movement was stiff. People always say sorry as if the word is a chair. It cannot carry the weight, but they still offer it. Halima did not argue. She simply broke 1 piece of akara and ate slowly. By 8:30, the nurse discharged her with instructions to eat regularly, take her medicine, and return if she felt dizzy again. Simi paid the remaining bill and asked Halima where she would stay. "I booked 1 room near the motor park." "With which money?" Halima reached into the inside pocket of her wrapper and produced 3 folded notes. 1,400 naira. Simi looked at her. Halima looked back. "Do not squeeze your face, my daughter. I am managing. You are not managing. You are calculating hunger." They went first to the motor park lodge. The receptionist said Halima's room had been given to another traveler because she had not returned before midnight. "Where is her bag?" Simi asked. The receptionist pointed at a corner. A nylon sack sat beside a broken mop bucket. Simi's mouth tightened. "That is how you keep a guest's property." "She paid only for 1 night. She nearly died." "Then thank God she did not die inside our room." Simi wanted to answer, but Halima touched her wrist. "Leave it." "No, Mama. People continue because everybody says leave it." Halima's eyes softened. Still, she picked up the sack. Inside were 2 wrappers, 1 blouse, a small towel, and a tin cup. That was all. Simi took her home. Her room had 1 narrow bed, 1 plastic chair, and a curtain separating the cooking corner. There was no space for dignity, but Simi created some. She spread a clean wrapper over the mattress, placed her own pillow at the head, and told Halima she would sleep on a mat. "You have already done too much," Halima said. "I have done 1 night. And tomorrow?" "Tomorrow will answer for itself." At 10:12 a.m., they entered the Oak Arrow Land Registry. The building had once been painted cream. Dust had turned it the color of tired paper. A handwritten notice instructed visitors not to pay money to staff, while a man near the door quietly collected 200 naira from people who wanted their files moved faster. Simi refused to pay him. They waited for 1 hour and 38 minutes. Finally, a clerk directed them to Yusuf Okafor. Yusuf was 41, lean, careful, and permanently surrounded by files. He wore a dark green shirt with rolled sleeves and reading glasses that kept sliding down his nose. "What do you need?" he asked without looking up. Halima gave him the land number. His pen stopped, then continued. "What is your interest?" "I am a founding trustee." "Of what?" "Aro Women's Development Trust." Yusuf looked up slowly. His eyes moved to Simi, then back to Halima. "That trust is inactive." "Inactive is not dead," Halima said. "The land has been redeveloped. Redevelopment is not ownership." Yusuf removed his glasses. "Mama, what exactly do you want?" "The registry entry." The survey plan, any deed of transfer, any consent document. You cannot just walk in and carry government file. I did not ask to carry it. I asked to inspect the record connected to property held in trust. Yusuf's expression changed slightly. Halima knew the language. Simi placed a photocopy of the old deed on his desk. Yusuf read the first page. He became more careful. This copy is old. Truth also becomes old, Halima replied. It does not become false because dust touched it. Yusuf glanced toward the open office door. Come back on Wednesday. Today is Sunday, Simi said. Your office opened specially because of Prosperity Week. Wednesday is 3 days away. Then come on Wednesday. Why? The file is in storage. Which storage? Yusuf's jaw tightened. Young woman, this is not your tailoring table. There are procedures here. Simi felt heat rise through her chest. Then she remembered what Halima had said. Kindness without questions could become foolishness. Anger without strategy could also become foolishness. She lowered her voice. Sir, please write the date we should return and acknowledge that we requested access today. Yusuf stared at her. Why? So nobody can later say we never came. For the first time, Yusuf looked impressed. He took a plain sheet of paper, wrote the land number, date and time, stamped it and gave them a copy. Wednesday, 10 in the morning. As they turned to leave, he said, Do not bring a crowd. Simi looked back. We came as 2 people. I know. His voice had become quiet. That afternoon, they went to the former office of the Women's Cooperative. It was now a provisions shop. The owner knew nothing about the trust, but an elderly tailor working 2 doors away remembered the women. They used to meet every last Thursday, she said. My mother sold bean cakes for them. Do you know what happened to their records? Halima asked. The tailor shook her head. When the old office closed, some papers went to the community hall. Others entered one pickup. People said the new development union would keep them. Who led that union? Simi asked. The woman laughed without humor. Who else dare Adebayo? They found the old newspaper archive inside a room behind Voice of Arrow 93, 7 FM. The station had preserved bound copies of local papers because Tola Johnson, one of its presenters, had insisted that community memory should not be thrown away whenever mold entered a cupboard. Tola was 32, sharp-eyed and energetic, wearing a violet blazer over a mint blouse. She listened without interrupting while Halima explained why they had come. Then she asked, Do you have evidence that the land number in your document is the same as the pavilion site? Halima showed her the survey plan. Tola did not celebrate. She did not gasp. She compared the boundaries with a printed town map. One corner matches the old clinic road, she said. But I need more than that. That is why we came, Simi replied. Tola led them into the archive. For 2 hours, they turned brittle pages beneath a standing fan that made more noise than wind. At 3:26 p.m., Simi found it. A small article dated February 11, 1991. 12 Woman Seculand for Maternity and Skills Center. The photograph beneath it showed the same group of women from Halima's folder. A younger Halima stood in the middle, holding one side of a banner. The article listed the plot number. It matched. Tola read the article twice. This proves the trust's historical claim, she said. It does not yet prove the present transfer was illegal. Simi frowned. You have the old deed, you have the land number. The pavilion is there, and Dare may have a lawful consent document. Signed by whom? Halima asked. That is what must be established. Tola faced them fully. Listen to me. People will want this story because it is dramatic. Old woman, rich developer, public humiliation. But if I broadcast before verifying the transfer, Dare will call it defamation, and the truth will drown inside noise. I need a certified registry copy. I need the company ownership records. I need a response from him, and I need another source who understands the trust. Simi felt disappointed. Halima nodded. She is correct. You are not angry? Simi asked. Why should I be angry because somebody refuses to believe only what pleases me? Tola smiled slightly. She photocopied the article and wrote her number on the back. Call me after Wednesday. When Simi returned home that evening, she found Amaka waiting outside. Her ruby suit was gone. She wore a black and white patterned dress and large sunglasses, although the sun had nearly set. You did not come to work, Amaka said. You dismissed me in front of 300 people. I was angry. You told security to remove me. I did not tell them. Chief Dare did. You slapped me. Amaka removed her glasses. There was no regret in her face. You embarrassed me first. I helped a sick woman. You took something from the sponsors' table. It was one bottle of soft drink. Today it is soft drink. Tomorrow you people will carry the microphone and generator. Simi stared at her. You came here for what? Amaka's eyes shifted to the room behind Simi. Halima sat inside, folding her wrapper. Amaka lowered her voice. Chief Dare wants to see you. Why? To settle the misunderstanding. Then he can come. Amaka laughed. Come where? This place that smells of engine oil and kerosene. Do you think an important man will enter this passage because of you? Then there is nothing to discuss. Amaka stepped closer. Simi, do not allow one old woman to confuse your destiny. Chief Dare can still return you to the grant list. He can even make sure your shop is inside the new commercial wing. Halima's hands stopped moving inside the room. Simi folded her arms. What does he want? Come tomorrow at 11. Where? The pavilion boardroom. Amaka put on her glasses again. And wear something presentable. You have already disgraced yourself enough. The next morning, Simi and Halima arrived at the pavilion together. Amaka tried to stop Halima at the door. She is not invited. Then I am not entering, Simi said. Dare's assistant came out and whispered in Amaka's ear. Her mouth tightened. Both of you can enter. The boardroom was colder than Simi's entire street. A long glass table stood beneath framed photographs of Dare, shaking hands with commissioners, business leaders, and traditional rulers. Dare sat at the head. He did not ask them to sit immediately. That small delay was deliberate. When he finally gestured toward the chairs, Halima remained standing. You wanted to see us, she said. Dare smiled. Mama Halima, you should have contacted my office properly. Yesterday became unfortunate. I wrote 3 letters. My office receives hundreds. Each one had acknowledgement. Dare's smile held. Simi placed the stamped receipts on the table. For a moment, the air conditioner was the only sound. Dare leaned back. Let us not make this difficult, he said. The town has developed. A modern facility now stands where bush remained for years. Jobs have been created. Revenue has entered Oak Aro. Nobody has stolen anything. Halima removed the old deed from her bag. This land was not bush. It was unused. It was waiting for money. And money came. From whom? Investors. Against whose property? Dare's eyes hardened. Then he turned to Simi. You applied for the enterprise grant. Yes. Your plan was good. Thank you. I can restore your application. Simi did not answer. I can also speak to Amaka concerning your unpaid wages. Amaka shifted in her chair. Dare continued. A shop unit will soon be available inside the commercial extension. You will receive it without the normal deposit. That is a serious opportunity. Halima looked at Simi, not suspiciously, not pleading. She simply looked. What do you want in return? Simi asked. Dare folded his hands. Return all original documents in Mama Halima's possession. Sign a statement confirming that she appeared confused when you met her. We will arrange proper accommodation and medical care for her. Halima laughed once. It was a dry sound. You want to put me where nobody can hear me? Mama, nobody is attacking you. You are attacking my memory because you cannot defeat my documents. Dare ignored her. He kept his eyes on Simi. Young woman, I am trying to help you. No, sir, you are trying to buy the part of me that can still sleep at night. Amaka slapped the table. Do not be stupid. Do you know how many people are begging for this chance? Simi looked at her. Then give it to one of them. Dare's smile disappeared. People without protection should not carry heavy truths, he said. The truth can crush them before it reaches anybody important. Simi felt fear, real fear, but she stood. Halima gathered her folder. At the door, Dare spoke again. One old paper will not close this building. Halima turned. No, she said, but one lie usually needs many more lies to keep standing. They left. By the time Simi reached Amaka Fashion House, her name had been removed from the duty board. Her sewing scissors, measuring tape, and personal patterns had been placed inside a black nylon bag. Amaka stood behind the counter. You are dismissed. Pay me what you owe. You owe me for training. My apprenticeship ended 5 years ago. You damaged my reputation yesterday. You slapped me, and I can slap sense into you again. The other workers lowered their eyes. Simi looked at each of them. Not one spoke. Amaka pushed the nylon bag across the counter. Carry your poverty and go. Simi took the bag. At the door, she stopped. You think because we are afraid to lose work, you own our silence. Amaka smiled. Silence is the only useful thing poor workers bring to business. Simi stepped outside. That evening, when she reached her usual place beside Unity Motor Park, her folding table was gone. So was the plastic stool. So was the small sign she had painted herself. A municipal enforcement officer stood nearby. Where are my things? She asked. Confiscated for what? Obstruction. I have used that space for 11 months. Today there was sanitation exercise. Only my table disappeared. The officer shrugged. Go to the office and pay release fee. How much? 25,000 naira. Simi laughed in disbelief. The officer leaned closer. Madame, do not make noise. We can also seize your machine if you are operating without permit. I do not have a machine there. Then thank God. He walked away. Simi stood on the empty patch of ground while buses moved around her and conductors shouted destinations. Ilorin! Offa! Jeba! The whole town kept going. Her grant was gone. Her job was gone. Her roadside income was gone. All within 48 hours of helping one woman. When she returned home, Halima was sitting in darkness because the power had failed again. Simi placed the black nylon bag on the floor. The old woman looked at it. They dismissed you. Yes. And the table? Taken. Halima lowered her head. Simi heard the old woman whisper, I am sorry. The words entered the room like that useless chair Simi had described earlier. They could not carry the weight. Still, Simi sat beside her. Wednesday, she said. Halima looked up. We return to the registry on Wednesday. Are you sure? No, Simi's voice shook. I am afraid, Mama. But fear is not proof that we should stop. Sometimes it is proof that somebody wants us to stop. Halima reached for her hand. Outside, a generator coughed into life. Inside the small room, neither woman knew that Yusuf Okafor was still at the land registry, standing alone before an old bound volume. He had found the page containing the trust land, or what remained of it. A strip of paper had been cut from the spine. The page now in its place was cleaner than the pages before and after it. The serial number ended in 47. The previous page ended in 39. The next one ended in 41. Yusuf stared at the impossible sequence. Then he heard footsteps in the corridor. He closed the register quickly. Too quickly. Because the man entering had already seen what he was reading. The man in the doorway was Dare Adebayo's administrative assistant. He carried no file. He had no reason to be inside the registry at 7:18 in the evening. Yet there he stood. "Oga Yusuf," he said, smiling. "You are still working?" Yusuf rested both hands on the closed register. "Some of us work beyond camera hours." The assistant laughed. "Chief appreciates hard-working people." "What do you need?" "A copy of the pavilion consent file." "Official request?" "It will come tomorrow." "Then the copy will come tomorrow." The assistant's smile faded at the edges. "Chief said it is urgent. Government records are not takeaway food." The man looked at the register beneath Yusuf's hands. "Is that the old volume?" "Yes. Chief's file should not be inside old volume." "I did not say it was." For several seconds, they watched each other. Then the assistant nodded. "Tomorrow, Oga Yusuf. Tomorrow." When the footsteps disappeared, Yusuf opened the register again. His fingers had begun to sweat. He knew the replacement page was wrong. Anybody trained in records could see it. The binding thread had been disturbed. The ink came from a later stamp pad. Even the paper was different. What frightened him was not discovering the alteration. What frightened him was remembering the day the original file had vanished. 3 years earlier, his director had instructed him to move 11 boxes from the public archive into an unnumbered storage room. Yusuf had asked for a transfer sheet. His director had stared at him. "Do you want promotion or procedure?" Yusuf chose silence. Now silence had returned with interest. On Wednesday morning, Simi and Halima arrived at 9:52. Yusuf kept them waiting until 11:16. Simi was angry, but she saw something in his face when he finally called them inside. He had not slept. "The file cannot be released for inspection today," he said. Halima's mouth tightened. "You gave us a stamped appointment." "I know. Then what changed?" Yusuf looked toward the door and lowered his voice. "The physical file is incomplete." Simi sat forward. "Incomplete how?" "Some documents are missing." "Which documents?" "The earliest transfer papers." Halima placed both palms on the desk. "There was no transfer." Yusuf swallowed. "The current register shows one." "To whom?" "RO Community Development Union first. Later, a lease to Heritage Pavilion Holdings Limited, who signed for the trust." Yusuf hesitated. 5 trustees' names. He wrote them on a piece of paper. Halima read the first name. Her face changed. "That woman died in 2004. The document is dated 2018. Yusuf said. "The second name belonged to a woman who had died in 2011. The third had moved to Ghana and died there before 2015. The fourth had been bedridden for years. The fifth was Halima Bello." Halima's hand trembled, but her voice did not. "I did not sign anything." Yusuf pushed the paper toward her. "Do not carry this outside and start shouting. It is not certified. It proves nothing by itself." "Then certify the register entry," Simi said. "I cannot certify a page I suspect has been altered." The room became still. Simi understood the meaning before Halima spoke. "You suspect forgery," the old woman said. Yusuf removed his glasses. "I suspect a records irregularity. Use the correct words." "What is the difference?" Simi asked. "The difference is whether I lose my job before evidence can be preserved." He opened a drawer and brought out a request form. "File an application for a certified search. State the land number. State the trust name. Request the register history, survey map, governor's consent, lease, and all supporting resolutions." "How long?" "Officially 14 working days." "We do not have 14 days," Halima said. "The commercial extension launch is next week." Yusuf looked at her sharply. "How do you know?" "It was announced on radio." Simi leaned toward him. "Can they sell more units before the search is complete?" "Yes." "Can they take another loan?" "Yes." "Can they move records?" Yusuf did not answer. That answer was enough. He wrote an address on the back of the form. Go here. Ask for Wale Nwosu. Who is he? A legal aid lawyer. He has handled trust property before. Halima studied Yusuf. Will you give evidence? His eyes dropped. I did not say that. You have seen something. I have seen enough to tell you to act carefully. Carefully is not the same as bravely, Halima said. Yusuf flinched. Simi touched her arm. Mama, Halima gathered the form. At the door, Yusuf said, Keep the originals away from your room. Simi turned. He was already looking at another file. Wale Nwosu's office occupied 2 rooms above a pharmacy. The staircase was narrow, and the signboard had lost corner to rust. Nothing about the place looked powerful. Wale himself looked tired. He was 45, tall, with a neat beard and a blue shirt rolled at the elbows. 3 people were waiting outside his office. Simi and Halima waited behind them. When they finally entered, Wei listened for 27 minutes without touching the documents. Then he asked Halima 5 questions about the trust. Who appointed replacement trustees? Where were annual returns filed? Did the deed contain a reversion clause? Was the land granted outright or conditionally? Had any court previously ruled on it? Halima answered what she knew and admitted what she did not. Wale nodded. That helps. Simi frowned. Not knowing helps? Honest gaps help. People who answer everything perfectly are often rehearsed. He put on gloves before opening the oldest paper. This is not magic, he said. Do not carry it around believing one document will defeat a whole system. We need chain of custody. We need certified copies. We need to identify the present legal owner. We need to preserve the registry. And we need to stop any fresh transfer before the evidence disappears. What can we do now? Simi asked. First, make high-quality copies. Second, lodge a formal complaint with acknowledgement. Third, request an interim restriction on the land record. Fourth, do not accuse anybody publicly of crime until the documents are verified. Halima looked displeased. They called me mad in public. And if we answer anger with careless words, they will use our mistake to bury their own. Wale turned to Simi. Do you have the originals at home? Yes, move them today. Where? Not all to one place. 1 sealed copy with me. 1 digital scan. 1 copy with a trusted third party. Keep the original deed in a bank document envelope if possible. Simi gave a bitter laugh. Bank document envelope sounds like something for people who have money. It costs less than losing the only evidence you have. Wale charged them nothing that day. He wrote every document received on a receipt, signed it and gave Simi a copy. Never hand over an original without a written record, he told her. Uniform. Title and confidence are not receipts. By evening, Tola had scanned the newspaper article, the deed, and the photograph. Wale kept 1 sealed photocopy set. Simi hid the original register inside a covered bucket beneath dry beans belonging to the woman who sold food beside her house. Halima laughed when she heard. No thief will search beans? A hungry thief might. Then God help us. The next blow came the following morning. At 7:04, 2 police officers arrived at Simi's room. The senior one held a printed complaint. Simi Okoro? Yes. You are invited to the station concerning financial exploitation of an elderly woman. Halima stepped from behind the curtain. Which elderly woman? The officer looked at her. Mama, are you Halima Bello? Yes. Did this young woman take money from you? No. Did she force you to sign any paper? No. Did she collect your bank card? No. The officer glanced at the complaint. It says 186,000 naira was withdrawn from your account. Halima laughed in disbelief. My entire account has not seen 186,000 naira at once since my husband was alive. The younger officer looked uncomfortable. The senior officer remained firm. Madame Simi, you still need to come and make statement. Am I under arrest? Simi asked. You are invited. Then I will come with my lawyer. The officer's eyebrows rose. You have lawyer? Simi almost said no. Instead, she replied, I have the right to call one. Whale met them at the station 40 minutes later. Before Simi wrote anything, he asked to see the complaint and the capacity in which she was being interviewed. The officer became irritated. Counsel, let us do our work. Please do, and let the record show whether my client is a suspect, witness, or invited person. The room tightened. Simi sat quietly. She understood then why powerful people disliked procedure. Procedure slowed down intimidation. The complaint claimed that Simi had manipulated Halima into granting her power of attorney over trust property. It also claimed she had withdrawn 186,000 naira from Halima's pension account on Monday afternoon. Whale turned to Halima. Do you have a bank statement? No. Can we obtain one? Yes. The station allowed Halima to make a separate statement denying the allegations. Whale insisted that every page be read aloud because her eyesight was weak. He also insisted that she sign only after corrections were initialed. When the officer asked Simi to surrender the original deed, Whale shook his head. You may inspect a certified copy. If you need the original, issue a written request and provide a chain of custody receipt. The officer stared at him. Are you teaching police work? No. I am protecting evidence. They left the station after 3 hours. Outside, Simi's knees weakened. She sat on a low concrete wall. I thought they would lock me inside. They could still investigate, Whaley said. Do not confuse one careful interview with victory. Halima sat beside her. This is because of me. No, Simi replied. This is because somebody is afraid of you. They went directly to Halima's bank. The statement showed a balance of 480 naira. No withdrawal of 186,000 had occurred. No power of attorney had been registered. No new signatory had been added. The alleged transaction was impossible. Whale read the complaint again. Then he pointed to the contact number written beneath the name of the supposed witness. Call it from a different phone, he said. Tola called from the radio station line and put the phone on speaker. A woman answered. Amaka Fashion House, good afternoon. Nobody spoke for a moment. Then Tola ended the call. Simi felt something cold travel down her back. The witness number belonged to Amaka's shop. Tola looked at Whale. Now can I broadcast? Not the land fraud as fact, he replied. But you can report that a complaint against Simi contains claims contradicted by bank records, provided you seek comment from the complainant and police. Tola nodded. She called Amaka. Amaka denied knowing anything about the complaint. Then she accused Tola of persecuting successful women. I built my business with hard work, Amaka said. Now one dismissed worker is trying to destroy me because I disciplined her. Did you slap her? Tola asked. There was a pause. That is not relevant. It happened in public. She provoked me. Did your office phone number appear on a complaint alleging financial exploitation? Anybody can write any number. Did you or your staff submit the complaint? I have said I know nothing. Tola requested a response from Dare's office as well. His statement arrived within an hour. Chief Dare Adebayo has no involvement in any private disagreement between Miss Simi Okoro and her former employer. The Heritage Pavilion remains committed to lawful development, respect for elders and women's empowerment. Simi read the statement twice. Respect for elders, she whispered. Halima's mouth twisted. Some people wash their words more often than their hands. That evening, Voice of Arrow broadcast a short report. Tola did not call Dare a thief. She did not say the land had been stolen. She said an elderly founding trustee had raised questions concerning the history of the pavilion site. She said a former grant finalist who assisted the woman had been accused of financial exploitation. But bank records reviewed by the station did not support the stated withdrawal. She said all parties had been contacted and that further verification was ongoing. It was careful. It was restrained. It shook the town. By nightfall, people were arguing in shops, buses, and family compounds. Some called Simi brave. Some called her desperate. Others said Halima was a paid actress brought by Dare's political enemies. The photograph of the slap circulated again, but the caption had changed. This girl lost a grant for saving an old woman. A marker posted a message warning against emotional manipulation by lazy workers. Dare remained silent. Yusuf listened to the radio from his sitting room with the volume low. His wife asked why his food was untouched. He told her he was not hungry. At 10:47 p.m., his phone rang. Dare's voice came through calmly. Olga Yusuf. Hope no problem. Yusuf sat upright. No problem, Chief. I heard some people are disturbing your office over old files. They submitted a search request. Good. Follow procedure, I will. And procedure can take time. Yusuf said nothing. Dare continued. I am recommending names for the new Regional Records Committee next month. Your name entered my mind. Thank you, Chief. Loyal people should not remain in one position forever. The call ended. Yusuf stared at the dark screen. Promotion, school fees, rent, respect. All he had to do was allow procedure to take time. He entered his bedroom, opened a metal box beneath his clothes, and removed an old transfer note. It was dated 3 years earlier. 11 archive boxes moved without inventory. His signature sat at the bottom. For the first time, Yusuf understood that silence was no longer protecting him. It was evidence against him. The next morning, he called Whale. I need to speak privately, he said. About what? The page that should exist. Whale waited. Yusuf's voice dropped to a whisper, and the page somebody put in its place. Whale did not allow Yusuf to come to his office. Too many people knew where it was. They met inside the back room of Voice of Arrow at 6:35 the next morning. Tola switched off the station camera, removed the battery, and placed both on the table where everyone could see them. This conversation is not being recorded, she said. Unless all of us agree. Yusuf looked relieved, then ashamed of his relief. Simi sat across from him. Halima sat beside her, holding a flask of unsweetened tea. Whale remained near the door. Yusuf placed the transfer note on the table. I moved 11 boxes on the instruction of my director, he said. No itemized inventory, no receiving officer's signature. Only this note. When? Whale asked. June 14, 3 years ago. Where did the boxes go? Storage room C. Do they remain there? No. What happened? Yusuf rubbed his face. 2 months later, the room was empty, I asked. My director said the files had been digitized and sent for destruction. Were they digitized? Tola asked. I found no scan record. Halima's voice was hard. And you kept quiet? Yes. Why? Yusuf looked at her. Because I have a family. Because people who challenge instructions in government offices can remain on one salary grade until retirement. Because I told myself the boxes contained old rubbish. Because fear knows how to dress itself like responsibility. Halima said nothing. Simi did. You did not forge the paper. But your silence gave the person who did it a locked room. Yusuf lowered his eyes. I know. Whaley pulled a notebook closer. Will you put this in a sworn statement? Yusuf hesitated. Yes. Will you identify the replacement page? Yes. Will you request formal preservation of the register? Yusuf breathed in slowly. Yes. That word changed everything. By noon, Whale had prepared an urgent petition to the Regional Land Authority. requesting that the register be sealed, photographed, and independently examined. Yusuf signed a statement describing the altered binding, mismatched serial numbers, and missing archive trail. Tola did not broadcast his name, not yet. Instead, she began tracing Heritage Pavilion Holdings Limited through public company records. The company had 3 directors: Dare Adebayo, Dare's cousin, and a consulting firm whose beneficial owner was Dare's sister-in-law. The Community Development Union owned no shares. Still, town residents had been told the pavilion belonged to Oak Aro. Whale obtained a copy of the loan security documents through a formal disclosure attached to the land complaint. The pavilion had been financed by a 214 million naira facility. The trust land was listed as collateral. Simi stared at the figure. 214 million. Whale nodded. And if the loan fails, the lender may attempt to enforce the security. So land donated for a clinic can become bank property? If the security is valid, and if it is not. That is what the court and regulators must determine. Halima held the document near the window. Her name appeared beneath a resolution approving the lease. The signature resembled hers from a distance. Up close, the strokes were too straight. "I write bellow with a break after the B," she said. "I have done it since teacher training college." This person joined every letter. Whale compared the signature with her pension documents and old meeting minutes. He did not declare it forged. He requested a handwriting examination. The dates created a stronger problem. 4 supposed signatories were dead before the resolution date. Whale obtained death records from family members and church burial registers. One woman's burial program carried a date 7 years before her alleged signature. Tola visited her adult son. He showed her a photograph of the funeral. "My mother signed papers after death?" he asked. Then perhaps Chief Dare should also ask her to attend his next board meeting. The clip spread across Oak Aro by evening. Dare responded through a lawyer. He claimed the resolution had been prepared from earlier consents and signed by authorized representatives. He warned against trial by media. Whale read the statement and shook his head. "They are changing the explanation." "What was the first explanation?" Simi asked. "That the trustees approved the transfer. Now they say authorized representatives acted from earlier consent. Can they do that? Only if the deed and trust rules permit it, and only if the representatives were validly appointed. Were they? We have seen no proof." The pressure on Simi increased. Her landlord asked whether police would raid the compound. The mechanic behind her room complained that customers were staring. The food seller who had hidden the register became afraid and returned it. 2 clients cancelled sewing work after a marker told them Simi might use their measurements for fraud. Then, on the 6th day, Dare sent an invitation, not through a marker, through a lawyer. The meeting took place at a hotel outside Oak Aro. Whale advised Simi not to go alone. Dare refused Halima's presence but accepted Whale. A typed settlement agreement waited on the table. 7.3 million naira. Simi read the figure again. 7,300,000. The amount was not random. It was enough to change the shape of her life. The agreement said the payment was compensation for wrongful exclusion from Prosperity Week, emotional distress, and unpaid wages. In return, Simi would withdraw all complaints, make no further statements concerning the pavilion, surrender documents in her possession, and acknowledge that she had no personal knowledge of the land's legal history. Dare sat across from her in a pale grey kaftan. "No insult today," he said. "No shouting. Just sense." Whale tapped one paragraph. "This requires her to surrender documents belonging to Halima. Any documents in her possession, She cannot transfer another person's property. Then Mama Halima can sign separately. She will not. Dare ignored him and looked at Simi. 7.3 million can buy 5 machines, rent a shop and leave money for expansion. Simi remained silent. You have suffered enough, Dare continued. What has this town given you? A slap. Laughter, police questions. And the people encouraging you today will forget your name next month. Whale leaned toward her. You do not have to answer now. Dare nodded. Take it home. Think like an adult, not like somebody inside a radio drama. That insult landed because it contained truth. People did forget. Crowds loved heroes until school fees came due. Courage could not pay rent. Simi carried the agreement home. She did not tell Halima immediately. That night, she sat beneath the weak light of her rechargeable lamp and calculated. A good industrial machine. 412,000 naira. A second machine. 398,000. Overlock machine. 285,000. 1 year's rent for a modest shop. 480,000. Cutting table, pressing iron, inverter, fabrics, licenses and wages. Even after everything, millions would remain. She imagined a painted signboard. She imagined customers calling her Madam Simi. She imagined never standing before Amaka again. At 1:22 a.m., she signed her name on a blank sheet just to see how it looked beside 7.3 million. Then she cried. Not because she wanted the money, because she wanted to stop being brave. Halima woke and saw her. What happened? Simi slid the agreement across the bed. The old woman read slowly. When she finished, she folded it. Take the money if you must. Simi stared at her. What? I will not curse you. You will lose the case. Maybe. They will say I invented everything. Maybe. Why are you saying this? Because a choice made under hunger is not the same as a choice made in comfort. I will not sit in your room, eat your food and pretend your sacrifice costs nothing. Simi's tears fell harder. Halima touched her shoulder. But understand the price clearly. They are not paying you because you lied. They are paying you because your truth is valuable. The room went quiet. At dawn, Simi opened the contribution register again. She had read many pages, but not every name. The entries were arranged by street. Women had contributed 20 naira, 50 naira, 100 naira. Some paid in food sales, some in sewing labor, some donated cement or timber. Near the middle, Simi found an entry from her old neighborhood. Okoro, Ruth, 6 monthly payments. Total 420 naira. Purpose, Maternity Center Fund. Simi stopped breathing. Ruth Okoro was her mother. She remembered her mother frying bean cakes before sunrise. She remembered the smoke, the metal tray, and the way Ruth wrapped coins inside newspaper before leaving for cooperative meetings. Simi had thought those meetings were only for food sellers. Halima leaned over her shoulder. Your mother was Ruth? You knew her? She had a loud laugh. She used to argue that the skills center must include tailoring, not only catering. Simi covered her mouth. The room blurred. Her mother had died without seeing the building. The money she contributed had crossed decades, passed through dishonest hands, and helped secure a private event center, where her daughter was later slapped for helping a sick woman. The circle was too cruel. Simi tore the settlement agreement in half, then into 4 pieces. Halima watched her. I am not rejecting it because I am stronger than hunger, Simi said. I am rejecting it because they already collected money from my mother. She placed the pieces inside an envelope and returned them through Whale. Dare received them at 10:03 a.m. At 10:41, Amaka posted a message accusing Simi of blackmail. At 11:08, 3 municipal officers arrived to inspect Simi's room for illegal commercial activity. At 12:20, the Regional Land Authority acknowledged Wales' preservation request. At 1:16, Voice of Aro reported that at least 4 deceased women appeared as signatories on the pavilion consent resolution. By 2 o'clock, Oak Aro had stopped whispering. The town was boiling. A group of young men gathered outside the pavilion that evening. Some carried plastic bottles filled with petrol. They shouted that the building belonged to their mothers. Dare's security men locked the gate. Police vehicles arrived. Simi heard about the crowd from Tola and ran there with Halima and Wale. One man raised a bottle. "Burn the thief's palace." The crowd roared. Simi pushed forward. "Stop!" Nobody listened. She climbed onto a low concrete divider. "If you burn this place, you will burn our evidence," she shouted. The noise dropped slightly, she continued. "You will destroy a building that may belong to the community. You will injure workers who did not forge any paper. You will give Dare the chance to call himself a victim. Is that what you want?" A man shouted back. "So we should fold our hands? No. Use them to demand records. Use them to sign petitions. Use them to stand at the hearing. But do not use them to destroy what can be returned to us." Another man lifted the petrol bottle. "Law is for rich people. Then let us force the law to look at poor people," Simi said. "But if you burn this place tonight, tomorrow the story will not be about stolen land. It will be about violence. Do not help them change the subject." Silence spread through the crowd. The man lowered the bottle. One by one, others did the same. Dare watched from an upstairs window. His face was hidden behind tinted glass. But Simi knew he was there. The following morning, Wale obtained an interim administrative restriction preventing sale, fresh mortgage, alteration or transfer of the property pending review. The regional authority also ordered preservation of the land register and supporting files. A public hearing was scheduled for Saturday at the local government hall. The announcement struck Oak Aro like a bell. Market women printed the date on paper. Drivers discussed it at motor parks. Families searched old boxes for contribution receipts. People who had laughed at Halima now claimed they had always respected her. Amaka closed her shop early. Dare cancelled 2 public appearances. For the first time, the pavilion's brass letters looked less like glory and more like evidence. On Friday evening, Simi returned home after meeting Wale. The door was open. Her mattress had been moved. The curtain hung crooked. Halima was gone. Her medicine bottle lay beside the bed. Her off-white headscarf rested on the pillow. Simi called her phone. It rang once, then switched off. She searched the compound, the clinic, the motor park, and the radio station. Nobody had seen her. By 9:30 p.m., panic had swallowed the town. Tola broadcast a request for information without revealing Halima's exact lodging. Wale contacted the police and demanded that the disappearance be recorded immediately. Dare's supporters moved faster. They posted that Simi had hidden the old woman because Halima intended to withdraw her claim. Amaka shared the message. Simi stood in the middle of her room, staring at the abandoned medicine bottle. Tomorrow was the hearing. Without Halima, Dare would call every document stolen, every memory unreliable, every accusation political. Simi picked up the headscarf and pressed it to her chest. For the first time since the slap, she felt completely defeated. Then her phone rang. The number was unknown. A woman's voice said, "Are you Simi Okoro?" "Yes. I am calling from Ilorin General Hospital." Simi gripped the phone with both hands. The woman continued. "We have an elderly patient named Halima Bello." Simi's knees almost gave way. She was brought in with dangerously high blood pressure. She is stable now. Who brought her? A woman who said she is an old colleague. They were on the way to collect a certified document when Mama became ill. Simi closed her eyes. Not kidnapped. Not hidden. Still fighting. Can I speak to her? There was movement on the line. Then Halima's tired voice came through. My daughter. Simi began to cry. Mama, you left without telling me. I wrote a note. They scattered the room. I did not see it. I am sorry. Can you come tomorrow? Halima was quiet. Then, she said, I did not travel to Ilorin for treatment alone. What did you collect? A certified copy from the State Archive. Simi held her breath. The original trust registration, Halima said. Sealed and stamped. Outside, Oak Arrow was still arguing about whether the old woman had disappeared. Inside the hospital, Halima held the document that could end the argument. The hearing would begin in 11 hours. Saturday morning arrived under a low gray sky. By 7:15, people were already gathering outside the local government hall. Market women came with folded receipts inside plastic bags. Retired teachers carried old meeting minutes. Men who had once called Halima a beggar now pushed toward the gate, telling anyone who would listen that their mothers had contributed cement, labor, or food to the trust. The hall could seat 420 people. Nearly 700 arrived. Police created a narrow entrance and searched bags. Patrol, sticks and metal objects were not allowed inside. Tola's team set up microphones at the side wall, and Voice of Aro began a live audio broadcast at 8:48. This is a public administrative hearing, she told listeners. It is not a criminal trial. Evidence presented today may lead to further investigation, but nobody should treat allegations as convictions. Whale heard her and nodded. That sentence mattered. Truth needed heat. It also needed boundaries. Simi stood near the front wearing a deep teal dress and a turmeric yellow scarf. Her cheek no longer showed the slap clearly, but the memory of it sat beneath her skin. She had slept for less than 2 hours. Halima was still traveling from Ilorin with a doctor, an old colleague, and a state archive officer. Heavy rain had slowed the road. The hearing was scheduled for 9. At 9:03, Dare entered. He wore a burgundy agbada embroidered with gold. Amaka followed in a fuchsia suit and black heels. Their clothes announced confidence even before their faces did. Some people hissed. Others remained quiet. Dare walked to his table, arranged his papers, and greeted the panel as though the hall belonged to him. Amaka avoided Simi's eyes. Yusuf arrived at 9:11 carrying a locked document case. His shirt was dark green. Sweat marked the collar. When he passed Simi, he whispered, "The original register is secured. Will you speak?" His steps slowed. Yes. At 9:19, the chair of the panel called the hearing to order. The first issue was narrow. Who held lawful authority over the 18.7 acres on which Heritage Pavilion stood? The second issue was wider. Whether public funds, community contributions, or false documents had been used in the development. Dare's lawyer requested an adjournment. He argued that Halima was absent, that hostile radio coverage had prejudiced the process, and that some documents had been obtained improperly. Whale opposed the request. The principal witness is medically stable and traveling here, he said. The land is subject to continuing commercial activity. Delay creates risk. The panel can begin with undisputed public records. The panel agreed. Dare was invited to present first. He rose slowly. For 11 years, he said, Oak Arrow had begged for investment. Roads were poor. Businesses were leaving. Young adults traveled away because the town offered nothing. I returned when many successful sons of this soil refused to look back, he said. I brought contractors. I brought banks. I created 63 direct jobs and more than 100 indirect opportunities. The Heritage Pavilion has hosted weddings, conferences, medical outreaches, and educational programs. Some people clapped. Dare waited for the sound to settle. Now, because I am considering public service, political enemies have recruited a confused elderly woman and a disgruntled former employee to attack development. Simi's hands tightened. Whale touched her wrist beneath the table. Wait. Dare lifted a document. This is the registered consent authorizing transfer of the land from RO Women's Development Trust to the Community Development Union. This is the lease to Heritage Pavilion Holdings. This is the construction approval. Every stage followed law. His lawyer submitted the papers. The panel reviewed them. Dare continued. The young woman, Simi Okoro, had no knowledge of this land until she was disqualified from our grant process for misconduct. Within days, she became the face of a campaign against me. Ask yourself why. He turned slightly toward her. Pain can make people useful to those who want revenge. Amaka lowered her head to hide a smile. The panel invited questions. Whale stood. Chief Dare. Who owns Heritage Pavilion Holdings Limited? The company has multiple interests. Please answer directly. I am one of the directors. Does the Community Development Union own shares? The project serves the community regardless of technical structure. That was not my question. Dare's lawyer objected. The panel directed Dare to answer. No, he said. The union does not presently hold shares. A murmur moved through the hall. Whale continued. Who are the other directors? Dare named his cousin and the consulting firm. Who beneficially owns that firm? Dare's lawyer stood again. The panel already had the company search. The chair read the name aloud. Dare's sister-in-law. The murmur became louder. Dare raised one hand. Family involvement is not a crime. No, Whale said. Undisclosed private benefit from community assets may be a conflict. We will allow the documents to speak. Next came the loan. 214 million naira. The trust land had secured it. Dare defended the transaction. Large projects require financing. Did the community know its land was pledged? Whale asked. The authorized trustees approved it. Which trustees? The names are on the resolution. Whale displayed the list on a projector. 5 names filled the wall. Halima Bello, and 4 women whose families sat inside the hall. One adult son stood and held up his mother's burial program. My mother died 7 years before that date, he shouted. The chair ordered him to sit. Another family produced a death certificate. A third had church burial records. The 4th woman had been bedridden at the time and unable to sign, according to medical records submitted by her family. Dare's lawyer argued that representatives may have signed. Whale pointed to the document. No representative capacity is stated. These signatures appear directly beside the women's names. Dare leaned toward his lawyer and whispered. For the first time, his calm expression cracked. Amaka checked her phone. Simi watched her type beneath the table. At 10:27, Yusuf was called. He approached the witness table with the locked case. His voice was weak at first. He described the register system. He described serial sequences. He described binding thread, stamp dates, and page replacement indicators. Then the panel opened the case under observation. Yusuf placed the register on a support cushion. He turned to the relevant section. Even from the audience, the replacement page looked cleaner than the rest. The page before ends in serial 39, Yusuf said. The page after ends in 41. This inserted page ends in 47. The chair frowned. Could that be clerical error? One error, perhaps. But the binding was cut. The paper stock differs. The ink stamp was introduced years after the date written on the page, and the original archive file cannot be traced. The hall went quiet. Who had access? Several officers. Did you participate in removing records? Yusuf's lips moved, but no sound came. He looked toward Dare. Dare stared back. The promise of promotion seemed to hang between them. Yusuf lowered his head, then raised it again. I moved 11 boxes without inventory 3 years ago. Gasps filled the hall. On whose instruction? The chair asked. My director's. Where are the boxes? I do not know. Why did you not report the irregularity? Yusuf's hands trembled. Because I was afraid. The chair waited. Yusuf continued. I told myself I did not alter any page. I told myself obeying an instruction was different from helping wrongdoing. But my silence gave whoever changed those records time and privacy. I accept responsibility for that failure. Simi looked at Halima's empty chair. That was what accountability sounded like. Not an excuse, not a miracle. A person naming the part he had played. Yusuf submitted the transfer note and copies of internal storage logs. The panel ordered the registry director to appear at a later investigation. Then, Tola was invited to explain the historical newspaper record and the station's verification process. She spoke plainly. The station did not conclude that a crime occurred. We confirmed that Arrow Women's Development Trust publicly announced acquisition of the same plot number in 1991 for a maternity and vocational center. We confirmed that at least 4 listed signatories died before the consent date. We confirmed the company ownership. We requested responses from all parties. Dare's lawyer asked whether Tola had encouraged public hostility. No. Did your reports not lead to protests? Public interest is not the same as incitement. Did you broadcast emotional interviews? We removed unverified accusations from every interview. Are you politically opposed to Chief Dare? I am opposed to publishing what I cannot support. Somebody clapped. The chair stopped the audience, but a smile passed across Tola's face. At 11:36, Whale presented the contribution register. 317 women. Amounts ranging from 12 naira to 1,600. Food sale proceeds. Tailoring labor, building materials, transport services. He explained that the value was not only in the money. The register established community purpose, donor intention, and decades of reliance. Simi saw her mother's name projected onto the wall. Ruth Okoro. 420 naira. Her throat closed. Dare's lawyer stood. A private contribution register does not prove present title. Whale nodded. Correct. That is why it is one part of a chain, not the whole chain. The words mattered. No magic paper, no convenient miracle. A chain. At noon, Halima had still not arrived. Dare's lawyer renewed the request to end the hearing. The person claiming to be a trustee is absent. We have no medical assessment of her capacity. We have no verified state registration. We have only emotional history. Dare leaned back. His confidence returned. Amaka whispered something to him. He smiled. The panel chair looked at Whale. Where is your principal witness? Whale checked his phone. No new message. The vehicle left Eilerin more than 2 hours ago. Can you confirm her location? No. Dare's lawyer rose. This process is becoming theater. At that moment, the hall doors opened. Everybody turned. Halima stood at the entrance. She wore her indigo blouse, orange wrapper, and off-white headscarf. A doctor walked on one side of her. Her old colleague supported the other. Behind them came a state archive officer, carrying a sealed document case. The entire hall rose. Not because anyone instructed them, because shame had finally recognized the woman it ignored. Halima walked slowly down the aisle. The same people who had laughed moved their knees aside to create space. One woman began to cry. Amaka's face lost color. Dare did not move. Halima reached the front and sat. The doctor submitted a brief medical note, confirming that she had experienced severe hypertension, had received treatment, and was presently alert, oriented and capable of giving evidence. Dare's lawyer objected to the adequacy of the assessment. The doctor replied, "I did not assess land ownership. I assessed whether my patient understands where she is, why she is here, and the consequences of her decisions. She does." A low sound of approval moved through the hall. The state archive officer opened the sealed case. Inside was a certified copy of the original trust registration, filed at state level on September 4, 1989. The deed matched Halima's old copy. The survey number matched the pavilion land. The trust purpose matched the newspaper report. The restriction clause required unanimous approval of living trustees or a properly appointed replacement board before commercial transfer. No valid amendment appeared in the state archive. No replacement board had been registered. No commercial consent from the trust had been filed there. The chair looked at Dare's documents, then at the certified archive copy. "Chief Adebayo," she said, "where did your consent resolution originate?" Dare's lawyer answered for him, "From local registry records. The local page is under question. That does not automatically invalidate it, no, but it creates a serious conflict." Halima was invited to speak. She adjusted the microphone. Her first words were not angry. "I was a midwife for 31 years, she said. "I saw women arrive at night in wheelbarrows because there was no vehicle. I saw husbands searching for lantern fuel while their wives bled. I saw women survive. I also saw some who did not." The hall became still. "We formed the trust because waiting for rescue had become another way of burying people. We sold food. We stitched uniforms. We contributed coins. We begged for cement, zinc, and blocks. The Bello family donated land on condition that women would receive care and learn skills there." She pointed toward Dare. "I did not sign any transfer. I did not authorize anybody to sign for me. I did not surrender that purpose." Dare finally stood. "Mama Halima, with respect, the land remained empty for decades because promises were broken. I built something useful. You built private profit on public sacrifice. The pavilion created jobs. A stolen vehicle can also employ a driver. That does not make the vehicle yours." The hall erupted. The chair struck the table and demanded order. Halima waited. Then she spoke directly to Dare. "I did not come here to collect land for myself. I came because land donated by poor women should not become the private dining room of rich men." Dare's face tightened. "You are insulting development." "No. I am asking who development is allowed to crush." Whale then presented the financial records. For 11 years, residents had contributed to what public appeals called the Oak Aro Maternal Health and Development Fund. The total recorded inflow exceeded 96 million naira. The town expected a clinic expansion and training center. Instead, large payments went to contractors connected to Heritage Pavilion Holdings. Other payments serviced parts of the pavilion loan. Only a small amount repaired one wing of the old clinic. The crowd reacted with disbelief. A woman stood and shouted, "I paid every harvest season." Another cried, "They charged me 400,000 to use that hall for my husband's burial." A third held up a receipt. "My cooperative donated roofing sheets." The truth became personal in hundreds of different ways. People had paid to create an asset, then paid again to rent it. Dare raised both hands. "Those accounts are being misinterpreted. Funds were pooled for development. The pavilion attracts revenue that can support health programs." Whale asked, "Where are the audited transfers from pavilion revenue to the clinic?" Dare did not answer. "Where are the community's shares?" Silence. "Where was the conflict of interest disclosed?" Silence again. Then Tola's producer handed her a phone. She read the message and approached the panel. "We have received an audio file relevant to the false complaint against Simi," she said. The sender is a former employee of Amaka Fashion House. The station has confirmed the voice through comparison, but the panel must decide whether to hear it. Amaka stood at once. This is an ambush. The chair requested the file and asked whether Amaka wished to object through counsel. She had no counsel present. Dare's lawyer whispered to her, but did not formally represent her. The panel allowed a short portion. Amaka's voice filled the hall. Use the shop number. Write that Simi collected 186,000. Make it serious enough for police to call her. Once they frighten her, she will return the papers. A second voice asked, "What if the old woman denies it?" Amaka replied, "Say she is confused. Poor old people deny things today and forget tomorrow." The recording ended. No one moved. Amaka's phone slipped from her hand and struck the floor. The sound was small. It carried through the whole hall. Simi looked at the woman who had slapped her. Amaka's ruby confidence was gone. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Dare turned away from her. That single movement told everybody he intended to abandon her. Amaka saw it too. "Chief," she whispered. Dare did not look back. Simi stood. She had not planned to speak yet. Whale started to stop her, then saw her face and allowed it. She approached the microphone. "When I helped Mama Halima, I did not know about any trust," she said. "I did not know my own mother's name was inside that register. I only saw a sick woman on the ground while people protected chairs, drinks, and cameras." She looked toward the crowd. "Many of you saw her too. Heads lowered. You laughed when Amaka slapped me. Some of you recorded it. Some of you posted it. Today, because documents have shown that Mama Halima matters, everybody is standing for her. But suppose she carried no deed. Suppose she was only an old woman with no money and no secret. Would the slap become acceptable?" The hall went silent. Simi turned toward Dare. "You keep calling this development. But development that requires forged signatures, stolen wages, and sick women suffering inside an empty clinic is not development." Her voice sharpened. "It is theft wearing a clean agbada." The hall exploded. People rose. Some shouted. Some clapped until their palms hurt. Dare stood frozen beside the table, gold embroidery shining across his chest. For years, that agbada had announced authority. Now it looked exactly like what Simi had named it. A costume placed over theft. The panel chair struck the table repeatedly. "Order! Sit down, or this hearing will be suspended." It took nearly 3 minutes for the hall to settle. Dare remained standing. His lawyer pulled at his sleeve, but he did not sit. "You have heard only one side," Dare said. "You are allowing emotion to replace law." Whale answered from his table. "No, Chief. Emotion brought people here. Documents are keeping them here." Dare faced the panel. "I demand the opportunity to respond fully." "You will have it," the chair said. "Today's findings are preliminary. No criminal conviction will be made in this hall." Dare's shoulders loosened slightly. Then the chair continued. "However, the panel has seen enough to identify immediate risk to public property, records, and funds." The hall held its breath. She read the interim decisions one by one. All sales, leases, and commercial allocations connected to the 18.7 acres were suspended. No new mortgage, transfer, or alteration could be made without written approval from the regional authority. Heritage Pavilion Holdings was removed from sole operational control pending an independent audit. A temporary management board would be appointed with representatives of the trust beneficiaries, workers, local government, and professional auditors. The original land register would remain sealed. The loan documents, company records, contractor payments, and maternal health fund accounts would be preserved for investigation. The alleged false complaint against Simi would be referred for separate review. Nobody clapped this time. The words were too heavy. Dare's lawyer rose. "We reserve the right to challenge every order." "That right remains," the chair said. "So does the duty to comply until the orders are changed." Dare gathered his papers. As he turned to leave, people who had once rushed to shake his hand moved away from the aisle. Nobody touched him. Nobody called him chief. The absence of the title followed him out like a shadow. Amaka tried to leave behind him. A police officer stopped her at the door. "You are not under arrest," he said. "But investigators need your contact details and a formal statement concerning the audio recording and complaint." Amaka looked around desperately. "Chief Dare's lawyer will speak for me." Dare's lawyer had already left. She turned toward Dare. He did not stop. "Chief," she called. The hall heard her. Dare kept walking. Amaka's face crumpled for one brief second. Then she rebuilt it with anger. She pointed at Simi. "This girl planned everything. She entered my shop with envy. I trained her, I fed her. Now she wants to destroy me." Simi did not answer. One of Amaka's workers stood from the back row. "You did not feed us, Ma," the woman said. "You deducted food money from our wages." Another worker rose. "You still owe me 41,000 naira. A third lifted her hand. "And me, 68,000. Amaka spun toward them. "All of you should keep quiet." Nobody sat. For years, Amaka had survived because each worker believed she was suffering alone. The hearing allowed them to see one another. That was another kind of evidence. Outside the hall, rain had begun. People stood beneath verandas, speaking into phones and repeating what they had heard. Tola remained on air, carefully separating decisions from allegations. "The pavilion has not been permanently seized," she told listeners. "The operation has been placed under temporary control, pending audit. Chief Dare Adebayo has not been convicted. Investigations will determine criminal and civil responsibility." Simi listened from beneath the edge of the roof. Halima sat beside her on a plastic chair, wrapped in a borrowed shawl. "You should return to the hospital," Simi said. "I have heard enough hospitals for 1 week. Your blood pressure does not respect stubbornness. My stubbornness has carried me 72 years, and nearly carried you into the grave yesterday." Halima squeezed her face. Simi laughed for the first time in days. Then her laughter broke into tears. She covered her face. Halima held her. People passed them. Some greeted, some apologized. One man who had laughed at the pavilion knelt beside Simi. "I am ashamed," he said. "I recorded the slap." Simi looked at him. "Why?" He swallowed. "'Cause I thought it was funny. And now? Now I know it was wicked. Did you know it was wicked before the land documents?" The man lowered his head. "Yes, that answer mattered more than a perfect apology," Simi said. "Delete the version with the laughing caption. Keep the original if investigators need it." He nodded. "Do not edit it. Do not add music. Do not turn somebody's humiliation into entertainment again." "I understand." He walked away slowly. Whale joined them with a folder beneath his shirt to protect it from rain. "This is only the beginning," he said. Halima sighed. "Lawyers enjoy saying that after everybody else is tired." Whale smiled. "Because it is usually true," he explained the next steps. An independent survey would confirm the land boundaries. A forensic document examiner would review the disputed signatures and inserted registry page. Auditors would trace every payment from the maternal health fund. The bank would be asked to explain how the trust land was accepted as collateral. Workers and contractors would be interviewed. The temporary board would inventory the pavilion's assets. "This may take months," he said. Simi looked disappointed. "After everything today." Today stopped further harm. It did not answer every question. What if Dare uses money to delay? He may try. What if records disappear? That is why we obtained preservation orders. What if he wins? Whale looked at her honestly. Then we challenge it with evidence. Justice is not a drumbeat that always reaches the right door. It needs people to keep carrying it. Simi leaned against the wall. She had wanted the hearing to feel like an ending. Instead, it felt like a gate. Still, the gate was open. 3 days later, the temporary management board closed the pavilion for inventory. Staff were not dismissed. Their wages were paid from protected operating revenue while auditors reviewed the accounts. This decision surprised many people. Some had expected workers to lose everything simply because Dare had controlled the company. Halima opposed that. "Punish the hand that stole," she said. "Do not punish the cleaner who only swept the floor." The pavilion employed caterers, security guards, cleaners, technicians, and booking staff. Most had no knowledge of the land history. Removing Dare did not require throwing 63 families into hunger. That was the first lesson in restorative justice. Accountability had to be precise. 1 week later, the document examiner issued an interim report. Halima's disputed signature showed significant differences from authenticated samples. 2 other signatures had been copied from older meeting minutes. The ink and paper on the local register page were inconsistent with the date recorded. The report did not name the person who forged them. It established that further criminal investigation was justified. The bank froze enforcement of the land security pending review. It also opened an internal inquiry into the loan approval process. The company registry disclosed additional related party transactions. 3 contractors had addresses connected to Dare's relatives. One received 19 million naira for drainage work that local engineers could not locate. Another billed for imported marble at a quantity greater than what existed in the building. The third charged the maternal health fund for community medical equipment, but invoices led to banquet chairs, decorative lighting, and a commercial sound system. Each fact was ordinary on its own. Together, they formed a machine. The town began to understand that corruption did not always arrive as one man carrying a bag of cash. Sometimes it arrived as signatures, invoices, related companies, silent officers, and respectable meetings where nobody asked the second question. Amaka's case moved separately. The former employee who provided the recording gave a sworn statement. Phone records showed calls between Amaka's office and the number that submitted the complaint. The police invitation to Simi had been based on information that bank records quickly disproved. Amaka denied ordering a false report. Then she claimed the recording had been taken out of context. Then she said she had only wanted Simi questioned, not arrested. Her explanations changed each week. Her workers filed wage complaints together. There were 12 of them. The amounts owed totaled 617,000 naira. Amaka argued that some were apprentices and therefore not entitled to wages. The labor officer asked for written apprenticeship terms, training schedules, and expense records. She had none. Calling a worker an apprentice does not create free labor forever, the officer told her. Training and exploitation are not the same thing. Amaka was ordered to calculate unpaid wages, deductions, and overtime. Her accounts were reviewed as part of a settlement process. She sold one of her vehicles to meet the first payment. People called it karma. Simi called it arithmetic. Money owed had finally been counted. At the end of the 3rd month, prosecutors filed charges against Dare relating to suspected document forgery, fraudulent representation in obtaining credit, and diversion of community funds. 2 former officials were also charged. Dare pleaded not guilty. He was granted bail under conditions that restricted travel and required periodic reporting. Some people complained that he should have been thrown straight into prison. Whale corrected them. An accusation is not a conviction, he said on the radio. The same fairness we wanted for Simi must apply to a man we dislike. Justice that changes rules according to the person is only revenge with paperwork. The statement angered many listeners. It also educated them. Dare lost his chairmanship of the development union. He withdrew from consideration for public office. Several business partners suspended dealings with him. The pavilion company entered court-supervised restructuring, while the property dispute continued. His fall was not one dramatic door closing. It was many doors refusing to open. Amaka's public apology came during a workers' reconciliation meeting. She stood before Simi, Halima, and the employees she had underpaid. She wore a plain, dark dress, no bright suit, no camera team invited by her. A labor mediator asked her to read the statement she had signed. Amaka unfolded the paper. I acknowledge that I struck Simi Okoro in public, dismissed her unfairly, and repeated false claims about her conduct. I also acknowledge that my employment practices did not properly record or pay all wages owed. I apologize to Simi, Mama, Halima, and my workers. Her voice was flat. The mediator asked, Do you understand the harm? Amaka looked irritated. I have apologized. That was not the question. Silence. Simi watched her. This was not the sweet scene people imagined when they said they wanted an apology. Amaka did not fall to her knees. She did not suddenly become humble. Her pride still fought every word. Finally, she said, I understand that I used their need for work to make them accept things I would not accept for myself. The room became still. It was not enough to erase the harm. It was enough to name it. The settlement required Amaka to pay outstanding wages in scheduled installments, issue written employment terms, and allow an external review of workplace conditions. The false complaint remained under legal investigation and was not erased by the apology. Restoration did not cancel consequences. It directed them. Simi received her 73,000 naira in unpaid wages, additional compensation for wrongful dismissal, and the return value of her confiscated roadside table and tools. The prosperity grant process was cancelled and restarted under an independent panel. Simi applied again. Some people said she should be awarded the money automatically because of what she had suffered. She disagreed. If the process is now fair, let my plan compete fairly. Her revised application included 3 paid training positions, transparent wage terms, and a savings cooperative for workers. She was selected, not as a reward for helping Halima, because her figures were sound, her skill was proven, and her plan could survive scrutiny. The grant was paid in stages. She received equipment after submitting invoices. Rent went directly to the property owner. Working capital was released after the first inspection. There was no suitcase of cash, no overnight miracle. There was structure. Simi rented a modest room beside the market and painted the sign herself. Simi, Stitch House. The first 2 apprentices she hired received written terms, monthly stipends, and scheduled training hours. On the last working day of each month, Simshi paid them before she paid herself. Why? One asked. Because hunger should not be part of anybody's training. Halima sat in the shop on opening day, drinking tea without sugar and correcting everybody who tried to carry her on their head. I am not a queen, she complained. Simi adjusted the off-white headscarf around her shoulders. You are behaving like one. I am only old. You nearly shook an entire town. The town was already shaking. I only pointed at the crack. The greatest question remained the pavilion. Demolition was considered. Halima opposed it. The building is not guilty, she said. Its purpose was stolen. Return the purpose. After legal review, mediation, and an agreement that protected the trust's ownership while recognizing legitimate worker and creditor interests, the property was transferred to a reconstituted public benefit trust. The private company surrendered operational control. Assets purchased with diverted community funds remained with the center. Certain private investments were assessed through court-supervised claims rather than hidden settlements. The transformation took 9 months. The main banquet hall was divided carefully, not destroyed. One wing became a maternal health unit with examination rooms, a small laboratory, prenatal counseling space, and emergency stabilization equipment. Another wing became a vocational center for tailoring, catering, bookkeeping, and repair skills. The commercial kitchen remained, but its revenue supported operations under published accounts. A smaller hall continued to host community events at transparent rates. No family received secret discounts. No chairman signed contracts with his own company without disclosure. Every quarter, income and expenditure appeared on a notice board and online. The old clinic also received repairs because the new center could not replace every public health function at once. Tola devoted an entire radio series to explaining what had changed. She discussed conflict of interest. She explained why community organizations needed independent trustees. She showed listeners how to request receipts, read basic accounts, and distinguish a public project from a private company using public language. Yusuf appeared in one episode. His voice shook when he described his silence. "People think corruption belongs only to the person collecting money," he said. "Sometimes, it also belongs to the officer who sees a missing page and decides his salary is more important than the record." He faced disciplinary review for moving the boxes without proper inventory. He was not promoted. He accepted a formal sanction and remained available as a witness. Some people called that unfair because he later helped expose the truth. Yusuf disagreed. "Doing the right thing late does not erase what delay allowed," he said. "It only stops the damage from growing." The registry introduced new controls. Archive transfers required 2 signatures and itemized lists. Land pages were scanned at regional level. Changes to trust property triggered automatic notice to registered trustees and public benefit regulators. Oak Arrows Development Union adopted conflict of interest rules. Committee members had to declare family links to contractors. Community funds required quarterly reporting. Workers' contracts became mandatory for any business receiving public grants. The reforms were not perfect. Paper could not manufacture character, but paper could make dishonesty harder to hide. 1 year after the slap, the opening ceremony for Arrow Women's Health and Skills Center took place on the same pavement outside the former pavilion. This time, there were no velvet ropes separating important people from everybody else. Rows of chairs remained, but the front seats were reserved for the surviving relatives of the 12 founders. Clinic workers and women whose contribution receipts had helped prove the trust's purpose. Halima wore her indigo blouse and orange wrapper. Simi wore mustard yellow and cobalt blue. Not because anyone planned the colors, because both women remembered the first day. A new sign covered the old brass letters. Arrow Woman, Health and Skills Centra. Beneath it, smaller words read, "Built from community sacrifice, governed with public trust." Inside the maternal wing, a woman received a prenatal examination while her husband listened to a nurse explain warning signs that required urgent care. In the skills wing, 17 adult learners sat before industrial sewing machines. A bookkeeping class reviewed receipts and simple cash records. The building had not become holy. It had become useful. Simi carried the old black-and-white photograph into the entrance hall. It had been enlarged and framed. 12 women stood on empty land beneath the hard sun of 1989. Young Halima was in the middle. Ruth Okoro stood near the edge, smiling widely. Simi touched her mother's face through the glass. Halima joined her. "You found a good place for them," she said. "For us," Simi replied. "No, for them. They began it." A committee member approached with another framed photograph. It showed Simi speaking at the hearing. "We want to hang this beside the founders," he said. Simi shook her head. "Put it in the training room if you must." "Not beside them. Why?" Halima asked. Simi looked at the 12 women. "Because this place did not begin with me. I only refused to look away." Halima smiled. Outside, Tola interviewed visitors. Whale spoke with the new trustees. Yusuf stood quietly at the back, holding in a program. Amaka did not attend, though one of her former workers came as an instructor in the tailoring unit. Dare's criminal case had not yet reached final judgment. Lawyers still argued. Auditors still traced money. Some assets remained disputed. Life refused to wrap every consequence inside a neat ribbon. But the land was protected. The services had begun. The workers were paid. The accounts were open. And the woman people had treated like rubbish walked through the front door without asking permission. Before leaving, Halima stopped on the exact patch of pavement where she had collapsed 1 year earlier. Simi stood beside her. "Are you tired?" Simi asked. "I am managing." Simi gave her a warning look. Halima laughed. "All right, I am tired." "Better." They sat beneath the shade. People passed and greeted them. But neither woman needed the greetings as proof of worth. That proof had existed before the documents. Before the hearing. Before the whole town learned Halima's name. The first real test of the new center came 6 days after the ceremony. There were no cameras that morning. No chiefs. No banners. Only rain beating against the entrance and a heavily pregnant woman standing beneath it with mud on her slippers. She had traveled from a farming settlement outside Oak Arrow. Her wrapper was wet. Her husband had gone to look for transport money, and she carried no identification card. The receptionist looked at the appointment register. "Madam, you are not booked." The woman held her waist. "I have been having pain since night. You need to register first. I do not have the full money. Then go to the public clinic." The woman turned slowly toward the rain. Simi had come to deliver uniforms for the health workers. She heard the exchange from the corridor. "Why are you sending her away?" she asked. The receptionist pointed at the rules. "No registration, no consultation. If we start allowing everybody, the center will collapse." Simi looked at the woman's face. Sweat stood on her forehead despite the cold rain. "Call a nurse first," Simi said. "She is not paid. Assessment is not the same as free treatment. Check whether it is an emergency before discussing money." The receptionist squeezed her face. "Madam Simi, you are not medical staff." "No. That is why I am asking you to call somebody who is." A nurse came, examined the woman briefly, and moved at once. Her blood pressure was dangerously high. She needed urgent stabilization and referral. Had she been sent back into the rain, the consequences could have been severe. The temporary trust board met that afternoon. Simi did not demand that every service become free. The center needed medicine, salaries, electricity, and maintenance. Pretending costs did not exist would destroy the same institution they had fought to recover. Instead, they created an emergency assessment rule. Nobody showing signs of immediate danger would be turned away before clinical review. Payment questions would come after stabilization. A hardship fund, supported by kitchen revenue and voluntary donations, would assist people unable to pay. Every use of the fund would be recorded, without publishing the patient's private details. Halima listened to the proposal and nodded. "This is what purpose looks like," she said. "Not saying everything is free. Not saying money is more important than life. It is building a system that can see both." The receptionist received retraining rather than instant dismissal. She had followed a badly written rule, but she had also ignored obvious distress. Her warning remained on record. The rule was rewritten. That decision divided the town. Some people wanted her sacked. Others said she had done nothing wrong. Simi rejected both extremes. When a system teaches people to stop seeing human beings, changing only the worker will not repair the system, she said. But following a bad rule does not remove personal responsibility either. The woman recovered after treatment at the referral hospital. Weeks later, she returned with a small basket of groundnuts. She did not know the history of the center. She did not know Simi had once been slapped outside the same building. She only knew someone had refused to send her away. Simi accepted a handful of groundnuts and returned the basket. "Keep the rest for your house," she said. The woman smiled. "May somebody stand for you when your own voice is weak." Simi watched her leave. There was no convoy, no hidden inheritance, no shocking identity. Only a life that had mattered before anybody knew its value. That quiet morning completed what the public hearing had started. The town had recovered a building, but a building alone could still repeat the cruelty of the people who controlled it. True restoration required habits. It required rules that protected the weak, records that could be inspected, workers who could question harmful instructions, and leaders who understood that public service was not personal generosity. The center began holding monthly open meetings. Income from the hall and kitchen was read aloud. Expenditure was posted. Anyone could ask why a contractor was selected or why a medicine cost had increased. Questions were not treated as disrespect. At the first meeting, only 23 people attended. At the second, there were 41. By the fourth, traders, workers, and retired civil servants filled the small hall. Some questions were wise, some were suspicious, some were simply noisy. Still, Halima attended whenever her health allowed. "Accountability is not always beautiful," she told Simi. "Sometimes it is one person asking the same question 3 times because nobody answered properly the first 2. Simi carried that lesson into her own shop. Her apprentices could see the orders received, the amounts paid, and the costs deducted. When work was slow, she told them early. When a customer delayed payment, she did not pretend the workers had caused it. She had spent years learning how oppression felt. Now she was learning how easily a wounded person could reproduce it once given authority. That knowledge kept her careful. The first annual report of the reconstituted trust was released 11 months after the hearing. It listed every major expense, every source of income, and every contract above 200,000 naira. The document was not exciting. It contained tables, dates, signatures, and notes explaining why some targets had not been met. That plainness was its strength. The report showed that the center had provided prenatal assessments to 813 women, supported 74 hardship cases, and trained 106 adults in practical skills. It also admitted 3 failures. A laboratory upgrade had been delayed. Generator costs had exceeded budget. 2 contractors had delivered late. Some trustees wanted those weaknesses removed before publication. "It will make us look incompetent," one argued. Halima tapped the table. "A report that contains only success is an advertisement, not accountability." The failures remained. At the public meeting, residents questioned the board for nearly 2 hours. One trader asked why the kitchen income had fallen. A retired teacher challenged the cost of security. A health worker explained why emergency oxygen supplies could not be bought at the cheapest available price without checking quality. Simi watched people disagree without anybody being dragged outside. That sight moved her more than the brass band at the opening ceremony. Dare had once treated questions as insults, because questions threatened his control. The new trust treated questions as part of ownership. Not every accusation was correct. Not every demand could be satisfied. But records were available, answers were required, and nobody's poverty disqualified them from speaking. After the meeting, Halima signed the report with the same broken stroke after the letter B that had helped expose the false signature. Her hand shook more now. Simi held the paper steady, but she did not guide the pen. "You are becoming weak," Simi teased. "I am becoming old. You were already old when I met you, and you were already stubborn." They laughed together. The signature dried beneath the hall light. It was only ink on paper. Yet everybody in that room understood why honest ink, properly witnessed and carefully preserved, could protect lives long after voices became quiet. To me, the saddest part was never only that powerful people tried to steal what belonged to a community. It was that hundreds of ordinary people watched an elderly woman struggle and decided she was not worth 1 minute of their time. Documents exposed the land fraud. Audits exposed the money. A recording exposed the false accusation. But Simi's decision to stop and listen was what allowed the truth to survive long enough to be examined. We may never meet someone carrying a deed that can shake an entire town. Most people we help will not return with wealth, influence, or hidden power. Some may never repay us at all. That is exactly why dignity matters. Respect that depends on discovering somebody is important is not respect. It is fear wearing good manners. And cruelty does not always begin with a slap. Sometimes it begins much earlier. It begins when a crowd sees suffering and decides to keep watching.